My best friend started dating a trust fund kid, and while I felt a pang of envy, I genuinely wished her well. Of course, she didn't abandon our friendship for romance. She invited me to her boyfriend's equestrian center. The only catch was I couldn't bring my own boyfriend. I didn't quite get it, but I went anyway. No, darling, stop, not like this. Chloe's hushed, breathless gasps floated from inside the horse stalls. I stood peeking from just outside the semi-open stable partition, my legs instinctively squeezing together. As a powerful stallion in the stalls suddenly shook its head, tossing its mane, Chloe's voice rose into a desperate cry. Ethan Stone, Chloe's boyfriend, towered over her by at least 2 heads. The rolled-up sleeves of his shirt revealed smooth, powerful muscles. "Just one more time, baby," Ethan murmured, his body still tense with unsatisfied energy. But Chloe sounded truly overwhelmed. "No, please, there are people everywhere.
Someone might
See us. And I genuinely can't take any more." Ethan and Chloe had been dating for over 6 months, and their intimacy had always been a bit unbalanced. Mainly because Ethan had boundless energy and a definite thrill-seeker streak. Chloe had complained to me multiple times that she was practically living on soothing creams, avoiding intimacy whenever possible. I'd always thought she was humble bragging, trying to sound good. But witnessing Ethan's raw, untamed power, today, I finally understood the monumental difference between people. My own boyfriend, even with a little help, couldn't match a tenth of Ethan's intensity. Chloe's desperate, almost begging for mercy expression, I honestly felt a strange urge to experience it myself. But she was my best friend. I had to brutally squash those outrageous thoughts. By the time Chloe and Ethan reappeared, I had changed into a sleek riding outfit. "Mia, you look incredible in that," Chloe said, propping her chin on her hand, nodding and praising me. She even pulled me over to Ethan. "Isn't she, Ethan? Absolutely stunning." My figure was indeed quite defined, a wasp waist and rounded hips. The riding breeches, though form-fitting, hugged my curves perfectly, emphasizing a blend of strength and softness. The overall effect was undeniably alluring. I secretly glanced at Ethan. His eyes unintentionally lingered on my thighs, as if trying to see through the fabric. Remembering his still unsatisfied expression from just moments ago with Chloe, I subtly bit my lip. Just that look from him had almost made me blush. These breeches were so tight, any visible reaction would be impossible to
hide.
"Could you help me find a coach, please?" I quickly changed the subject, trying to cover my embarrassment. Ethan also had shares in this equestrian center, so Chloe had insisted on covering all costs for my visit. As an average working-class person, I'd never ridden a horse before. But Chloe just smiled, telling me not to worry. Ethan would teach me himself. "Oh, no, that's too much trouble," I stammered, my face flushing instantly as I pictured him teaching me, meaning we'd be pressed together. I shook my head, waving my hands in refusal. Chloe, however, was oblivious. With a generous shove to my rear, she helped me onto the horse. Ethan, with practiced ease, stepped into the stirrup and swung onto the saddle behind me. All I could do was grip the reins, my back stiff and unmoving. I kept repeating to myself, the more Chloe trusts me, the more I must uphold my boundaries. But before my mental defenses were fully in place, Ethan's firm chest pressed tightly against my back. In one fluid motion, his long, strong arms wrapped around me, enclosing me completely. I could even catch a faint scent of his still-present musk, bouncing gently on the horse's back. Within a few minutes, I felt a shameful, unfamiliar sensation where my body met the saddle. Ethan didn't seem to notice my discomfort. He meticulously adjusted my posture, even explaining some quick tips for riding. I wasn't really listening. His closeness, combined with the vivid image of him with Chloe in the stable, kept replaying in my mind. I gasped, distracted and missing Ethan's warning that he was about to start. When the horse began to trot, I lost my balance and nearly fell. Fortunately, Ethan caught me, pulling me back until his upper body was even more tightly against mine. Relax. Don't be so stiff. Loosen your legs. Ethan's hand glided over my thigh, sending a jolt of heat through me. Just as I wondered if I was overthinking it, he leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Why are you clenching so tight?" What was that? What kind of suggestive comment was that? I turned, shocked, to look at Ethan. He merely smiled, calm and composed. The horse's sides don't grip them so hard.
Oh, right.
He meant the horse's sides. My mind had definitely gone to the wrong place. I released my grip a little, feeling a bit embarrassed. My riding skills are excellent. No need to be scared.
Chloe, told you, right?
Ethan's voice was full of self-assurance. I secretly muttered, "She did, actually. But she said you ride her like your personal racehorse." After riding for a while, I started to relax, both physically and emotionally, so I instinctively leaned back. Because my hips were quite pronounced, their curve fit perfectly between Ethan's legs. I felt a searing heat, as if pierced, and quickly straightened my back, hearing Ethan suppress a groan in my ear. "Engage your core. I'm going to speed up." Ethan's tone held an odd, almost suggestive double meaning. Core. I hadn't quite registered it when Ethan nudged the horse's sides, and we began to gallop around the arena. Horse riding helps strengthen your core. Your boyfriend will benefit from it too. What did that have to do with my boyfriend?
When I
Finally pieced it together, I was too mortified to respond.
So,
I simply shut my mouth and focused on riding. As the horse's back moved up and down, a jolt, like electricity, seemed to shoot from my tailbone. The noisy equestrian center felt as if it had suddenly fallen silent, like we were in a vacuum. Even at the most intense moments with my boyfriend, I never experienced anything like this. Yet, with Ethan, even with clothes between us, I felt like I was about to burst into fireworks. Finally, the excruciating riding lesson concluded. My legs were so weak, Chloe thought I was just shaken for my first time on a horse. So she told Ethan to help me dismount. But because my legs were completely jelly, I nearly fell. Ethan had to steady me by cupping my rear. His hand was large, his fingers long, and somehow he brushed against my sensitive spot. I cried out involuntarily. "What's wrong?" Chloe immediately asked with concern. My leg just cramped up," I mumbled, making up a quick excuse, hoping to brush it off. That evening after dinner, Chloe suggested we go to the mountain peak behind the equestrian center to watch the sunset. I didn't want to be a third wheel, but Chloe talked and pleaded until I finally agreed to go.
What?
We're riding horses? I'm wearing a skirt. We drove the SUV to the foot of the mountain, where two horses were waiting in the shade. Chloe said it was fine. The horses would just walk up the mountain, so a skirt was no issue. Ethan had a small pony specifically for Chloe, which only she could ride. And because I was new to riding for safety, I would share a horse with Ethan. I initially refused flat out, wanting to head straight back to the stables. But Chloe pointed out there was no driver, so I'd have to hike back alone. It was almost sunset, and walking alone through a deserted rural road at night was truly unsettling. I reluctantly got onto the horse. My skirt wasn't short, but the specific riding posture meant the white fabric barely covered my backside, preventing a full exposure. My bare, pale thighs were fully exposed, a stark contrast against the dark, glossy horsehair. The mountain path here is tricky. Hold on tight to me. Ethan held the reins with one hand, and with the other, he gripped the saddle, his fingers brushing against me subtly. As the horse swayed and bumped, I fought to suppress involuntary shivers. Ethan's breathing grew heavier and heavier. watching Chloe and her small pony disappear further and further into the distance, a deeply immoral thought spark ed within me. Just as I was locked in a battle between my conscience and my desires, Ethan's hand moved away from the saddle. The receding heat instantly snapped me back to reality.
I
Was secretly relieved that I hadn't done anything irreversible when suddenly a low-hanging vine on the narrow mountain path forced me to press my entire upper body onto the horse's back. But I forgot about this position front low, back high, which rendered my skirts covering function almost useless. Chills swept over me, and only then did I remember that for breathability and a seamless look I was wearing a thong. But it was too late to adjust myself. Ethan pulled me forcefully back against him. I could distinctly feel a warmth, like body heat. The sensation of sitting down again was no longer the cold saddle. For a moment I forgot who Ethan was and who I was. In this desolate outdoor spot, only the horses tied nearby and the sound of Ethan's and my panting filled the air. The sky grew darker and darker. I don't know how long it lasted, but I only knew it was an experience I'd never had before. Both in terms of duration and intensity, Ethan was truly different. He could go on and on like a tireless colt, changing various positions and methods to sustain the session. Our encounter finally ended with Ethan's complete release. Lying on the grass, Ethan slowly remarked, "You're something else. You're the first one who didn't beg for mercy." I rolled over, grinning mischievously at him. "Want to go for round two?" Just as Ethan was about to launch his second attack, his phone rang. It turned out he'd promised his family he'd be home for dinner. He hadn't returned, so they were calling
to check in.
Ethan told me he'd originally expected me to give up quickly, leading to a quick and unsatisfying end, which was why he'd agreed to go home for dinner with his
mom.
He simply hadn't anticipated such a long performance time. Ethan was reluctant to leave, asking if we could meet again tomorrow. I understood what Ethan meant, but then I suddenly thought of Chloe. I felt uncertain about how I would face her in the days to come. Days passed, and one spring afternoon, I was snuggled against Ethan, still relishing the peace that followed our latest bout of passion. The tranquility was shattered by a phone call. On the other end, Chloe's voice was urgent and anxious. "Mia, are you free right now? I have something really important I need to talk to you about." I frowned. Chloe's tone made me uneasy, but I knew, as a best friend, I had a responsibility to support her when she needed it. We met at a coffee shop. As soon as Chloe saw me, she eagerly grabbed my hand. "You know, Ethan and I have been having some problems lately. He's not answering his phone or my texts. I haven't seen him in ages." Listening to Chloe, a wave of guilt washed over me. Chloe continued, "Actually, you like Ethan too, don't you?" Chloe's question stunned me into silence. What exactly were my feelings for Ethan? Was it love, like Chloe's, right from the start? Just as I was lost in thought, what Chloe said next left me utterly dumbfounded. She told me she knew everything about my time with Ethan. She had orchestrated that whole situation because she simply couldn't keep him to herself anymore. But she loved Ethan very, very, very much, and she knew she was almost losing him on her own.
So she came up with this plan.
And apparently there were others before me. Ethan was a classic Playboy trust fund kid with a very bro-ad taste. As long as a girl was pretty and had a good figure, she could become a tool for his release. Love, to him, was utterly insignificant. And so was I. I shouldn't think Ethan had any special feelings for me. I was just a novelty, a plaything who could satisfy him. All her previous best friends had been one-night flings with Ethan, with no follow-up. Only I had managed to make Ethan neglect Chloe. The old Ethan used to think Chloe could help him.
If one
girl didn't work out, Chloe could help him find the next.
But
then he met me, and he stopped bothering with her.
She
was devastated and desperate. She hadn't expected that Ethan and I would continue beyond that one encounter. She thought I had a very loving boyfriend and that we were good friends. She believed I would just occasionally help her out, help her keep her boyfriend, and we could all continue living happily. Her voice became more and more uncontrolled, and tears began to stream down her face. I stared at Chloe, shocked, unable to believe these words were coming from her. I thought back to everything in the
Past.
In the beginning, Chloe would always subtly bring up Ethan, often inviting me to join them at various events.
I
Had genuinely thought she wanted us all to be good friends, but I never imagined she had such an agenda. My heart was a mix of emotions, fury and disappointment. Fury that Chloe had betrayed me, using my trust. Disappointment that what I thought was a strong friendship had been so fragile. However, Chloe didn't seem to notice my emotional turmoil. She continued, I know what I did was awful, but I really like Ethan. I promise if you just disappear, we can still be the best of friends, just like before. I couldn't stand it anymore and cut her off. Chloe, how could you do this? How could you sacrifice our friendship for your own selfish desires? Chloe seemed startled by my outburst. She lowered her head and was silent for a moment, then looked up and said, I'm sorry. I truly know I messed up, but I really like Ethan right now, and I don't want to lose him. I looked at Chloe, her eyes red-rimmed with tears, and a pang of sympathy went through me. But sympathy couldn't erase her betrayal. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and said, Chloe, our friendship is precious, but I can't agree to what you just suggested because of it. Your problems with Ethan don't stem from me. Chloe listened to my words, and in her eyes, disappointment mingled with a hint of newfound resolve. We didn't reach a consensus during that conversation, but we both understood each other's positions. I chose to forgive Chloe, but our friendship could never go back to what it was. Another week passed. Today was Jake's birthday. I had specially dressed up and styled myself before going to his place. When I arrived, he was already in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He was an incredibly thoughtful person, even on his own birthday, he'd always cook something delicious for me and give me a gift. Seeing the table laden with dishes, I asked curiously, It's just the two of us tonight, isn't it? Why did you make so much food? We won't be able to eat it all. Jake looked at me, puzzled. Didn't you invite Chloe too? She texted me last night. I went out specifically to buy more groceries today, just in case we didn't have enough. My heart tightened. Chloe and I had exchanged information about our boyfriends' birthdays. And I'd told her that for our birthdays, we always had small, private celebrations. At home, just cooking good food, having a little wine, and enjoying a simple, happy celebration together. Her coming today specifically wasn't to say or do something, was it? After all, I still hadn't brought myself to break up with Jake, because I could clearly feel that my relationship with Ethan wasn't like a normal couple's. We didn't have the same sense of stability and warmth that I shared with
Jake.
Just as my mind was still racing with possibilities, the
Doorbell rang.
I stood frozen, letting the doorbell chime repeatedly. I couldn't imagine what would happen when I opened the door. Jake mumbled something about me not opening the door, then turned off the stove, put down his spatula, and walked to the front door. The door slowly opened, revealing Chloe standing on Jake's doorstep. Her eyes held a complex mix of emotions, a hint of vengeful satisfaction, but also a flicker of almost imperceptible guilt. She took a deep breath. Chloe gave him no time to react, launching directly into a detailed account of everything that had happened between Ethan and me. Every detail, every scene, was vividly described, as if she had been there herself. When Jake heard it all, he seemed to lose his soul. His voice trembled as he asked, Is this true? Chloe nodded, not flinching from his gaze. In that moment, Jake's heart shattered completely. His face, once so full of tenderness, was now pale and haggard. He had never imagined I would betray him, nor could he accept such a reality. He closed his eyes in pain, as if trying to process the sudden blow. After a deep breath, he slowly opened his eyes, his gaze filled with complex emotions: disbelief, disappointment, and a glimmer of desperate hope. His voice trembled, almost a plea. "Mia," is what she said. "All true? We've been together for 3 years, and did you really do this?" I stood rooted to the spot, looking at his eyes, once so full of love, now clouded with doubt and pain. I knew he instinctively hoped to hear my explanation, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. I stood there, but I couldn't speak. Because my eyes had been blinded by desire, even an explanation would sound hollow and meaningless. I could only silently lower my head, allowing his heart to break into pieces. It was as if I had already forgotten every single moment we shared. I tried to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat, because I knew, no matter what I said, I couldn't get back what we once had. The feeling Ethan gave me was something I was unwilling to give up at that moment. Just like the song says, impulsive hearts rarely hear pleas to stay. Jake watched my silence, seemingly receiving the answer he least wanted. The anger flickering in his eyes erupted. Instantly, like an unleashed beast, he furiously charged at the meticulously prepared birthday dinner. He flipped the table with force. Plates, bowls, and food scattered everywhere, turning into a complete mess. I could understand his rage and disappointment. This was supposed to be a warm birthday celebration, but it had turned into such a disaster because of my betrayal. Every dish on that table was my favorite, and each one represented his love and care for me. Now, however, they were witnesses to our broken relationship, becoming an indelible pain in his heart. This birthday, for him, would probably, truly be the greatest heartbreak of his life. And I would never forget this moment, the pain I had caused him. And just like that, Jake broke up with me. I dragged my heavy feet out of his house. Standing alone on the street, the cold wind cut through me like knives, but what was even harder to bear was the profound loneliness and chill in my heart. I tried to find a shred of warmth, a bit of comfort, but all around me were only indifferent streetlights and hurrying passers-by. I closed my eyes, trying to recall our beautiful past moments. Those sweet smiles, tender embraces, affectionate goodbyes. Everything felt like it was just yesterday, but now it was so utterly out of reach. I tried to grasp those fragments of memories, but they slipped through my fingers like quicksand, leaving only emptiness and helplessness. However, when I opened my eyes, only flashes of my time with Ethan remained in my mind. Those exhilarating scenes, intense passion, endless desire, they swirled in my mind like nightmares, refusing to let me go. I realized that I had been completely consumed by desire, unable to return to the innocent, kind person I once was. I stood in the wind, letting the cold air whip my face and carry away my tears. But thinking about Ethan's presence still eased my mood a little. Ethan's image floated into my mind, though I knew my relationship with him wasn't pure love. At least in that moment, he had given me a feeling of being needed, of being accompanied. I picked up my phone and dialed Ethan's number. His familiar voice came through the phone, but it seemed tinged with a subtle, almost imperceptible coldness and distance. Even so, I chose to ignore these subtle changes. I just hoped to find some solace from him. We agreed on a meeting place. When I saw him, he was still as outwardly enthusiastic as before. It felt like we were back to the very beginning. However, this enthusiasm didn't last long. As time went on, I gradually noticed the subtle shift in Ethan's attitude toward me.
He no longer contacted me.
First, whenever I called him, he would either hang up quickly or not answer at all. Messages on chat apps went into the abyss. I often stare at the screen, hoping for some possible reply, but usually all I got was icy silence. This change made me feel incredibly uneasy and anxious. I started replaying our time together, trying to find the root of the problem. Was there something I hadn't done well enough? Was he facing some difficulty or trouble? I tried various ways to check on him, but each attempt was fruitless. His needs for me were purely physical and nothing else, leaving me feeling incredibly helpless and lost. I started frequently scrolling through our chat history, trying to find some clues. Those sweet words we once exchanged now seemed so distant and unfamiliar. I tried to relive those good times through memories, but each recollection only made me more miserable. I began to realize that Ethan's coldness toward me hadn't happened overnight. I tried to accept this fact, but when night fell, I couldn't help but think of him. I started reflecting on my own actions, trying to pinpoint the problem. Was I too dependent on him? Were my expectations of him too high? Or was he simply a fickle person? However, no matter how hard I thought, I couldn't find a reasonable explanation. I began to realize that my relationship with Ethan had been built on an unstable foundation from the very beginning. Our encounter wasn't driven by true love, but by our own needs and desires propelling us forward. I thought back to my time with Jake, the plain yet genuine happiness we shared. I missed it terribly. I started to regret my initial choice. Why had I given up on someone who truly loved me for a moment of impulsiveness? I realized I had been blinded by desire and vanity, losing my rationality and judgment. On this lonely night, my yearning for Jake grew stronger. My hands trembling, I tried to contact him again, but the message on the screen pierced my heart. He had blocked me. In that moment, I felt as if I was pushed into a bottomless abyss. All hope and illusion shattered instantly. I learned through friends that he was about to get engaged, and he was incredibly doting and attentive to his fiancée. I knew deeply that my connection with him was completely severed, and I would never have a chance to go back to how things were. My heart was filled with endless regret and self-blame. I blamed myself for my impulsiveness and selfishness. Why hadn't I cherished that sincere relationship? But reality was right in front of me, and I had to accept it. I knew my chance was gone, but I also understood that everyone has their own path in life. I could only wish him well, wishing him and his new bride a happy and fulfilling
Life.
I stood outside the door of happiness, feeling like I was drifting further and further away from it.
My heart was
filled with endless regret. I regretted my past impulsiveness and selfishness, regretted not cherishing that genuine affection. However, time doesn't rewind, and everything was already set in stone. And I, too, had to learn to face my mistakes, accept reality, and strive to find my own happiness. I began to try and change my lifestyle and attitude. I learned to live alone, to take care of myself and nurture myself. I started focusing on my inner world, searching for the things that truly made me happy and fulfilled. I knew this would be a long and difficult process, but I believed that if I persevered, one day I would find my own happiness and a place to belong. I knew this was the punishment and price I had to face. But I also hoped that through this experience, I could rediscover myself, find the person I once was.